Okay, hello everyone and welcome to this week's Thursday 30. We've got Katie, who's one of the senior education consultants from CrickSoftware today with us, who's going to be talking about 3 Clicker apps, Clicker Writer, Clicker Books and Clicker Talk. So I'm going to hand straight over to you, Katie, and thank you for being here.
Thanks, Mary. Thanks, everybody, for joining me. As Mary said, I'll stop at certain points during the session. If you've got any questions, pop your microphone on and talk to me. Or if you want to, pop your question in the chat box and I'll keep an eye on that. It's on my other screen. Mary just gave us a really nice introduction to the 3 Clicker apps that we're going to be looking at this afternoon. And as many of you may know now, Clicker can be used on laptops and PCs as the Windows Mac version, or what we're concentrating on this afternoon, the Clicker apps family, which can be used on iPads and Chromebooks. And there's currently 3 apps in the Clicker apps family. We're going to start with Clicker Writer, which is probably the app that children will use most often for their day-to-day curriculum writing support. So you'll probably find that Clicker Writer is the one that you keep returning to for the range of scaffold and support that it can offer for children during writing tasks. We're also going to have a look at Clicker Books. So Clicker Books is an app which provides content around fiction or non-fiction topics that children can have read aloud to them. So it's ideal for children who struggle with reading access. Perhaps if they're doing a find out about task, they might struggle with extracting meaning from non-fiction books, or perhaps they just struggle to enjoy reading, and actually having books read aloud to them is a good way of engaging them in that reading process. So we'll have a look at Clicker Books, and finally we'll move on to Clicker Talk. So great for developing speaking and listening skills, removing the barrier to writing and asking children to talk about a variety of common curriculum topics and themes. And that might be retelling the story of Goldilocks and the 3 Bears, or it might be telling you what they know about a Viking longship. So we'll move on to Clicker Talk finally and think about how that can support children who perhaps find writing particularly difficult, and it can be a good alternative way of recording. So into Clicker Writer then. So for those of you that are using Clicker Writer on an iPad, or perhaps with a touchscreen Chromebook, you will have access to the on-screen keyboard. I'm just going to hide mine today, so you'll see the full screen with my writing on it. And what we're going to begin to look at in Clicker Writer is the key writing supports that children are going to be able to use. And if you've used Clicker before, you might be very familiar with these, but these are really sort of the prompts and the supports and the predictions that are going to help children become more fluent and more accurate in their writing output. So the first feature that we meet is our speech feedback. So as soon as I add a full stop into Clicker,
my name is Katie.
It's going to highlight and read to me in a child-friendly voice. So really that's to encourage children to read and track along, match the spoken word to the written word, and also you noticed it highlighting, so it's mimicking the finger or the eye moving along the page as we read and associate those words with what we're listening to. There's a choice of voices within Clicker Writer. You can also adapt the speed of the speech feedback. So to make any adaptations, personalisations within Clicker Writer, we have a cog icon in the top right-hand corner. And my second tab here is going to allow me to adjust that speech. So I can choose my voice. We've got 4 children's voices to choose from. And we've also got the speed slider at the top that allows me to slow down or speed up the voice that I'm listening to. Okay, what have we got next? We've got a spell checker. So if I was to put in my spelling error here, you'll see the red squiggly underline. So I can spot that I've got that word wrong. And of course, when I add in my full stop,
I find writing hard.
It's going to read it aloud to me. So now that we've got students that have spotted the mistake, we want them to be able to correct that mistake. So I've got two choices. If I'm using a Chromebook, I might want to click on the word and have the drop-down spell checker, which children might be familiar with. If I'm using this on an iPad or a touchscreen Chromebook and having my on-screen keyboard, I'm going to tap on my spelling error, and you'll see now that above my on-screen keyboard, I've got my spelling suggestions. Now, some children might want to listen to those words to check that they're finding the right one before they choose it. So just next to the word suggestions, I've got a blue sound button. And if I tap that, it will jump up into the air.
Sitting.
I can choose the word that I want to listen to, and I can have that speech prompt. So again, I can tap the sound button, listen to the word.
Writing.
Okay, I found the right word. My little blue button isn't in the air anymore. It's back in its original position. So now when I tap the word, I'm going to select it and send it into the sentence. So talking spell checker built within Clicker with, if I've got the on-screen keyboard, my word suggestions sitting along the top. Let's think about children who perhaps have lots of really good oral ideas, struggle with working memory and recall. For those children, we can use the voice note recorder. So along the top lower ribbon of Clicker, you can see a microphone button where my mouse is just hovering. If I tap that, I get my sound recorder. And when I'm ready to record my sentence, I press the red button. My favourite sport is football. I like playing in the sun. I'm going to press stop and done. And you can see that that voice note has now jumped into my writing page in this little red speech bubble. And again, I can click or tap onto that voice note. My favourite sport is football. I like playing in the sun. And Clicker will read it back to me. So it's a useful way of children being able to practice, record, and for Clicker to remember what their ideas are. And for younger children, that might be individual words that they want to remember. For older children, they might be moving into more extended sentences. For some children, they might even be leaving sequential story or paragraph ideas. Each voice note has a minute's talk time, and you can have up to 6 of them in your writing page. And you can see they've all got a slightly different colour, so children can discriminate between their different voice notes. Okay, let me show you the final key feature that I'm going to use to write back my original sentence. So we'll listen to it one more time. My favourite sport is football. I like playing in the sun. Okay, so to help me write this sentence, I'm going to use my predictor. And again, imagining I'm using my on-screen keyboard. To turn my predictor on, I'm going to go to the icon that is next to my voice note recorder. So whenever I'm ready to start using my predictor, I'm just going to start my sentence. And now I'm going to turn my predictor on. And you can see that at the top of the keyboard this time, they're not spelling suggestions. It's not the spell checker. They're now predicting the word that I'm trying to write. So my favourite, and you can see what happens as I start to add in favourite. And again, the words in the predictor, I can listen to.
Favourite.
So here we are, there's favourites. I'm going to move on to sport. You can see that I'm quite quickly moving through this sentence now using the word prompts that Clicker is providing for me. And if you've still got children that spell quite phonetically, you know, here's me having a go at football, it's still going to suggest phonetically recognisable, phonetically plausible attempts into that as well. So they're the key writing supports that all children are going to have access to through Clicker Writer. Just a couple more things that I'm going to mention while we're thinking about the writing process. I did mention earlier some changes that you can make around the speech and the voice. You can also change the font, the size, the colour of the font, the colour of the background. Just up here on the lower ribbon, you can see the box that allows me to make any of those changes. So I might want to change my writing size. I might want to change the colour of my font. I might want to use a different font, or perhaps even change the colour of my writing background. So that would enable me to make those sort of personal preference changes so that Clicker works best for each of my individual learners. Okay, I'm going to pause there and ask if you've got any questions so far about those key writing features, and I'm just going to keep my eye on the question box as well as I give you a minute to type in there.
Hi, Katie. Can I ask a question?
Of course.
You know, when you press the full stop, it reads it to you.
Yes.
If you want to repeat that,
Yes.
do you just delete the full stop and put the full stop in again? Or is there an easy way?
There is an easier way. You can just tap onto the word that you want to have listened to and press the sound button at the top.
Right.
And that will then read it back to you. Yeah. So just use the sound button.
Will that give you the whole sentence?
Give you the whole sentence, or if you tap just on the word, it's just going to tap the word.
Right. So if I want the whole sentence?
So if you want the whole sentence, put it at the end.
Katie.
And it will read the end. It will read the entire sentence if you then pop your sound on just here.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, let's move on then. I'm going to start now. I'm going to move away from Clicker Writer, and I'm actually going to jump into Clicker Books and think about how we can support children around a curriculum topic. So let's just jump into Clicker Books. So this is our Clicker Books app. And I'm going to think as a teacher how I might be able to support children at different stages within their classroom lesson. And today we're going to choose the topic of the Tudors. So in each of the three apps, in the top left-hand corner, you'll find a folder icon. And when you go into that folder icon, you will meet an area that's called Learning Grids. So this is where we have all our ready-made curriculum support linked to the app that we're in. So obviously I'm in Clicker Books. So what I'm finding in here in Learning Grids is all of our ready-made Clicker Books. So I'm going to jump into my history tab today. You can see we've got all of our different curriculum subjects with all of the different subtopics and themes within there. So I'm going to take a topic of the Tudors and have a think about how we can use all of the three different apps to support children at different stages of the literacy journey. So I'm going to start by thinking about having a book that children can access as content. So this Clicker book is all about Tudor Town. So you can see it opening now with an introduction page, a picture and a title. And when I want to move on to the next page, I can follow the arrow button at the bottom. I meet all of my content, and then I want this read aloud to me. So I'm going to press the microphone button.
In the early 1500s, most people were farmers. They lived in villages in the countryside.
And it's going to read that aloud to me. If I want to listen to it more than once, I can repeat it using the sound button at the bottom. I can move through each page, having this content read back to me. So it's great for children who might be taking part in a research or finding out activity and perhaps struggle with online research or non-fiction content that they're having to read aloud themselves. So having met our vocabulary, having introduced our topic, and this is great for introducing vocabulary, over practicing language prior to writing, leading into a speaking and listening task, we can then use that content within our other two apps. So now I'm going to jump back to Clicker Writer, and I'm going to go into my learning grids here. And now I'm going to find my children a writing task linked to that Clicker book on Tudor Towns. And this is where we've got our differentiated levels of support. So for some learners, they may be accessing a sentence set, like you can see on my screen at the moment, where they've got all of the words that they need to make a sentence. And what we're asking those students to do is rearrange them into sentence order. And again, I can listen to any of the words before I use them. And what you've probably noticed is the pictures and the language that we now meet within our sentence set are exactly the same pictures and language that we encountered within our Clicker book. So it's a really nice progression, transition from reading now and using that same vocabulary in our written task. So children can tap the word to build up their sentence. If they need any additional support, we've got our support button above the picture that's going to show them the sentence that they're trying to make. Again, if they tap on it, they can listen to it as well. And when they've built up their sentence and they add in their full stop,
Tudor towns were often near towns.
It's going to read it back to me. So I can spot in there that I've made a mistake. I've used the wrong word there. Might want to go back to my support and make sure, and then I can take out the word that I don't want and correct my error and add in my full stop.
Tudor towns were often near rivers.
And check my support. And now I know I've got that right. So I can move through my sentence grid by using my blue arrow button, or if I'm on an iPad, I can swipe to move on to the next grid. And I can move through this task sentence by sentence. So for children that are just beginning to construct sentences, perhaps need the highest level of support when writing independently, sentence sets can be ideal for those learners. Sentence sets, as we jump back into learning grids, progress on to connect sets. So if I open up my Tudor Towns connect set, you can see that what's happening now is I'm starting to introduce a wider working vocabulary, and there's a bigger element of learner choice. So I've still got all of the words that I need. I've still got my punctuation, but now I've got a selection of beginnings, middles, ends, and connectives to manipulate as a learner to create a sentence or perhaps multiple sentences that make sense. So connect sets start to encourage children to step into more extended writing beyond the single sentence that we expect from a sentence set. And again, I move through the blue arrows or I swipe along the bottom of my iPad to move backwards and forwards through my grid. So helpful in allowing children to progress in sequential order through a piece of writing as well and move through a clear structure. And then connect sets, of course, have to progress into word banks. So these are really designed for children who are confident and comfortable using their high frequency words, but what they would really need is some topic specific vocabulary. So you can see here I've got a word bank where I've sorted the vocabulary into different elements of my Tudor town. So helpful in providing vocabulary support, but also helpful in enabling children to structure their writing around those different tabs. And for children using a word bank, what they would be able to do is use their high frequency words, as well as the words at the bottom in the word bar,
Animals.
to build up their writing. I could also, if I wanted to, have my other clicker features turned on. So I might want to use my predictor at the same time as I want to use my word bank. So all of those features that we looked at previously, the spell checker, the speech feedback, the predictor and the voice notes are still working alongside my word bank at the bottom. So I can really make sure my children have got the level of support that's right for them. Just finally, while we're in Clicker Writer and looking at our writing grids, I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but people always ask me if you can make any changes or any edits. The answer to that is yes. Whichever app you're working in the right-hand corner, there will be a pencil icon, which takes you into the edit view. So for this example, I might just want to take some of this vocabulary out. So let's take out villages and goods, and I'm going to write in products instead. So you can see that what's happened is I've changed some of that vocabulary. I've put a new word in there. There's lots of other edits you can make. If you want to change or highlight any of the colours, so perhaps I've got some vocabulary in here that I want to highlight for my children. Useful as well if any of you use colourful semantics. I can click on the cell, I can choose my colour icon, and I might highlight a couple of these words that I really want my children to remember to use in their writing. Other option as well, you can add in pictures. So if you want to find a picture that can go with the word, I can choose the picture icon just here. It will take me through to my CrickPics library, and then I can choose what picture I want to insert. So changing words, changing colours, adding in pictures, all there with the edit option. Okay, let's pause there and ask if anybody's got any questions about those 3 writing grids that we've just been looking at: sentence sets, connect sets, or word banks. Okay, I'll keep an eye on my chat just in case somebody's still typing, but I'm going to jump into the final app, which is going to be Clicker Talk. So great for supporting speaking and listening skills, a great alternative way of recording for children who perhaps struggle with writing. So like we did in our previous apps, up in the top left-hand corner, we can move into learning grids. We can find our curriculum topic. And this time we're going to see our talk sets. So let's open up our talk set on Tudor Towns. And what a talk set enables you to do is to click on each individual picture and use that built-in microphone again. So a bit like we were using the microphone within Clicker Writer to use a voice note, this time we're going to use it within the context of a talk set, so children can describe what they see in the picture, what they've learnt in today's lesson. Again, if they've been reading the information in the Clicker book, they might be able to remember and record some of that. So it works in exactly the same way. We're going to press the red record button. I'm going to tell you everything that I know about the Tudor towns and villages in this picture. I'm going to press stop and done, and Clicker's then going to store that voice note recording. So it's a useful way of removing the barrier to writing and seeing what children are able to know, understand and explain using their oral language skills. So that's Clicker Talk, and again, lots of ready-made grids there. We looked at a history example. It might be that we want them to retell a story. So we've got an example here of a Clicker Talk, where what we're doing is retelling this story that we've met in the book of Goldilocks and the 3 Bears. So Clicker Talk, really versatile, but also a really useful alternative to writing. Okay, I've got a final few minutes and I'm going to jump back into Clicker Writer to show you the most recent addition within Clicker Writer, which is Clicker Boards. So let's just go back into Learning Grids And let's go back finally into our history topic of the Tudors. And this time we're going to open up one of our clicker boards. And you can see the type of resource down the side. I've got my sentence sets, my connect set. Here's a clicker board, a word bank, a clicker board. Let's open this clicker board mind map. So clicker boards are really helpful for children when they're planning, collecting, gathering ideas. They're useful at the start of a piece of writing or at the beginning of a topic to find out what children already know. They're useful in returning to and adding and collecting vocabulary as our working knowledge and understanding of the topic changes and develops over time. So again, you can see the tabs along the bottom with the same pictures that we've met in the writing grids and our clicker book. And the idea now is that all I need to do is to tap into the cell and I can add on any words that I think might be describing this market scene. So I'm going to put a couple of words in here from the pictures that we can see. So you can see that as I type them in, they're going to appear in my boxes. I can add on more boxes if I want to. I can add on more tabs onto my clicker board. But the idea is this is a great way of children initially collecting all of those thoughts. It also means that having worked on my clicker board and gathered some initial ideas, the move to then asking for children to write can be really simple because I can use this clicker board and I can create an immediate word bank. So what this will do now is take all of the vocabulary that I've just added onto my mind map and create a word bank at the bottom of my writing page. And if I want to move back to my clicker boards, I can just tap my clicker board tab. I can add on some new words. I can update my word bank. But it's really useful for children who perhaps struggle with the bridge between planning and writing, because having created a clicker board, having worked on their vocabulary, it can then be there ready for them at the bottom of their writing page, and they haven't got to remember how to spell words. It's already there, instantly accessible. Okay, final thing, I'm going to talk to you about saving and sharing, because the chances are that we might well want to save work and return back to it. We might want to find one of the clicker resources and share it with a learner that's working on a different device. So all I need to do to save or share is to go to the ribbon along the top and first of all, choose which element of clicker it is that I'm focusing on. So is it the document where you can see the writing that I've created, or is it the resource, the word bank at the bottom of my page? So I want to save my children's work. So I'm going to go to my document tab and I'm going to save this document. And you can choose the format that you want to save it in. I'm going to save it as a clicker document. And then really simply, all you need to do is to choose a folder location to save this into. And if many of you are using iPads or Chromebooks, you might be using Google Drive, Google Classroom, Dropbox, OneDrive. Clicker will find that folder location and allow you to save either the children's work, or if I want to save the resource, I'd go into my resource tab and do exactly the same. So save it, choose the folder location, and then I'll be able to return to it at a later date. Okay, very conscious that it's 4 o'clock. I'm going to ask if you've got any final questions. Jenny, that's a great question. Jenny's asked if the recording on Clicker Talk can also be displayed in text. What I think you're asking there, Jenny, is if I've recorded, so I've recorded my sentence about Goldilocks and the 3 bears, I've saved it. can I translate this into text? The simple answer is at the moment, no. You can save it, it will save the audio file, but the audio file won't translate into text. So you would have to listen back to it to find out what voice recording the student has saved.
Can I just ask quickly about the size of the font in the clicker boards as well? Is it possible to adjust that?
So let me just jump into clicker boards. So if you wanted to change the size of the font, yes, you've got some format text and font options in the box along the top. So you absolutely can make it bigger or smaller or adjust it to the size of the boxes.
Yeah, I just noticed when you were typing it was coming up quite big, and then when you entered it shrank
goes
down
a little
again.
bit smaller. So yeah, choose the size and the style of font as well, and it will make those changes onto clicker boards.
Lovely.
Okay.
Are there any other questions?
Just having a look. I can't see. Oh, go on.
Could we just see how this is going to be, this recording? Will it be emailed out to us just so that we can re-watch it again slower?
It will be, yes. We'll send that out to everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what
Great.
also,
And will it,
go on. I mean, I'm jumping over the top of you.
will it be just be sent out to our admin emails, whoever it was that received the link?
Yeah, so whoever signed up for the training, it will be sent out to you. Okay.
Yeah.
Can
And
I
just
also just
thank
say
you.
it'll be on our YouTube channel. So if you went onto our website and went to the training page, these recordings will be accessible from there as well. So yeah.
yeah, we've also, if you go onto our website, which is www.cricksoft.com, and go to the training tab along the top and go to clicker, we've also got some very short introductory videos. So if you want sort of just an element of what I've shown you today, you can go into the basics, and it might be that really all you want to be focusing on is word banks. And then there'll be a little short 3-minute video around that specific feature. So if you just want to sort of focus in on one of the features, whether that might be how to use the spell checker, there's a short video as well on there for you.
And also just to add, if you want to come along and see some live demonstrations, we've got our CENMAC event, Communication Works, coming up in 4 weeks today at Charlton Athletic Football Club. I'm going to put a link in the chat for that. Everyone's welcome to attend. It's a free event, and we'll have some students and some of the CENMAC team demonstrating clicker on the day. Cool.
All right, great. Well, thank you, everybody. I hope it's given you a quick insight into the 3 different apps this afternoon. Thanks so much for your time. And if there's, I'll hang around for a couple of minutes. If people are still sort of pondering over questions or want to type anything into the chat, then I'll give you sort of a couple more minutes. If you're leaving us, thanks very much and have a nice evening.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Katie. That was really helpful.
Thanks
very much.
Bye,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.